So every time I would go on stage top, I was like totally like, I wasn't going through like a fit, but I would have this fear like, cannot, I should fail. Don't fail. Don't fail. And now I don't feel it because of what I went through. And what I went through, what I'll tell people is sometimes hitting that rock bottom, which I hit, made me have to be hungry again, had to make me start from the beginning again.
Rudy Rush, welcome to Quick Before You Forget.
Hey, thank you so much, Tyler. I'm glad to be here.
I am so grateful you're here, and my friends have no idea how lucky they are that you're here with us today. Guys, Rudy Rush is a comedian, actor, radio personality who has spent his life bringing energy, laughter, and connection to audiences across the country. From hosting on iHeartRadio to performing stand up and appearing on platforms like HBO and Showtime, he's built a career rooted in authenticity, resilience, and showing up fully as himself. But beyond the spotlight, Rudy's story is one of growth, perspective, and what it really means to stay true to who you are while chasing something bigger. I believe our story is our superpower, Rudy, and I'd like to do with you today is walk through your story together, past, present, and future, starting with the past. How does that sound?
Well, I actually promised this story to Oprah, but I called her earlier and told her I would give it to Ty. So she's okay. So let's move forward.
Well, thank you. I feel honored. My goodness, sir.
Yeah, yeah. You might get a phone call or two from Oprah, but you know what? You're good. She approves of what you're doing.
Beautiful. I appreciate her
Yeah.
approval more than anything. So, goodness. Well, I want to start with a quick before you forget question. So, quick before you forget, what is a moment from your childhood that stays with you and has become part of who you are?
Wow. There's so many moments for me, Ty. Honestly, I have a vivid memory of even going far back as like being 2.5, 3 years old, which a lot of people don't start remembering things from when they were like 5, 6, whatever. But I remember the fourth grade. One thing that stood out that really resonated, even as current as me being 52, like I remember the fourth grade, it was award ceremony time. It was like, class awards. And Mrs. Green, I went to Catholic school, and Mrs. Green would this what they would consider a late teacher, like people who were not nuns. So you had nuns who were teachers, and you had, regular teachers, and they called them late teachers. But Miss Green, a late teacher, my teacher in the fourth grade, she was giving out awards. She had science, social studies, the norm, and time. The craziest thing she did, she gave me an award for dancing. And let me just tell you right now, if you think I'm a dancer, you're absolutely wrong. Oh, no, no dancing skills whatsoever, but we did have like a dance party. And when things are brought to a level of fun, that's where I kind of show out and show up. So there was something that I did. Even my classmates who saw me get the award, they were clapping. They were like totally in agreement. And, you know, it's funny that later on in life, that was probably the first person who saw my capability for being a very good entertainer and just having that spirit to bring something different to the situation. So she saw me and I recognized that. And that always kept me being proud because I wasn't a scholastic student. I would always pass my tests. I always made decent grades, enough to pass, but I was very just excitable about having fun and making sure everybody was involved. I think that's what she kind of recognized in me. So that's one of the moments that stands out the most.
She made you feel seen.
No, she really did. And, there's other pieces to the story that go into who I am today. I went home and got in trouble for having the award. So that's just the kind of like the paradox is like it's shifted, that's a part of my career, who I am as a person, just to kind of, I can do all of these things, but there's a shy level and there's a little, breaking through barriers myself, even in my later stages in my career, and even now learning new things about myself to move forward. So yeah, it all started there for me.
So how do you break through the shyness? Because I don't you don't strike me as a very shy person at all. I
Yeah,
mean,
I gotta figure out the term because there is a word for it, and I should have researched it before we had this conversation. But I would tell you exactly what it is, Ty. It's it's an introvert mixed with an extroverted person. It's a word for it. You may know it, but basically, what I can do is have the capacity to be in front of thousands. I'm talking about I've done the Toyota Center with 50 Cent and Shreveport with everybody from Chappelle, Schultz, and Cat Williams. I actually hosted the event, and I can be around hundreds and thousands of people, take pictures, shake hands, everything. But when it's all said and done, while everybody's going off to the after party, I'm just going to decompress. I need to be by myself. It's no ritual, no shower needed to be taken. I may take a shower. You know what I mean? Do the regular things before you go to bed. There's no like panic button that I'm rushing off to just kind of do that. It's just that I feel more comfortable in my own space. So I'm not a party guy, but I can be around a million people who are ready to party.
well, you bring energy to the room. You bring energy to the room, but also for a living. Like you are an
Yes.
energy igniter, an energy infuser, and energy like in person. So, how do you protect your energy when you're not on stage or performing? Because you're the person that people seek it from. So how do you keep your energy clear?
So basically, it's nothing more like, some people do different things to just kind of collect themselves and reconnect. Some people like candles, other people like having a sip of brandy. Me personally, like, I kind of since COVID, there was a series of events that took place that led me to this moment. And it really helped me after 28 years of nothing really going totally wrong. Everything just hit the kitchen sink at one time. So it really helped me to realize who I am. So, we have our phones that have all these different moments now. Before we used to have these little photo albums. So I go through like my mental photo album and I think of all of the great things that I did throughout my career, the times that I made people really happy, or I just changed the whole, made 1,000 or more people at one time feel one way. And I look into myself and then I try to just use that to be like, hey, you're on the right track. You've done some great things. It's always been in the betterment of everybody, and you have to take some credit where I never gave myself credit for that before. I just gave all the other elements credit, but I had to take some myself. So that's what I do.
You said that the audience connects with you, and I've actually had the blessing and honor of seeing it happen in real time once not
God.
that long ago. I'm very grateful for that experience because you do very well connect with the audience. And I'm wondering how that feels for you when you know that you're connecting with them as opposed to entertaining them.
I know I'm connecting. Most of the time, it usually happens after the show. But honestly, I always tell people because they usually come up to me afterwards. I thank them for their energy because I tend to sometimes, if I have an audience when I can look out and connect with a few people, like when I tell some of my jokes and I'm living through this experience, which is usually a story that I've created, uh, I can see the passion and the energy, like, oh man, I was there. That's happened to me too. So I thanked them. I said, thanks for that energy. Like I kept coming, I keep coming to some people when I see them in the audience and they're totally like engaged. And I'm like, okay, that's my guy, that's my girl right there. So I kind of bop, 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 and it brings everybody to this table where we're all just having this conversation. I don't care if it's 150 or like I said before, sometimes it's 1,000. And so, that's one thing that I'm most proud of, that I can get people to always come to me after the show or even during the show and they can feel connected to what I'm saying because it's all relatable things that I talk.
So when you talk about the journey that you've had in your career, obviously that's a big difference of 150 people or 1,000 people or more than that. Can you walk us through how you went from the fourth grader that got that honor to be the best dancer to today? Because there's a lot there, obviously, and you said you had 28 years before all the things happened at once, but I wanna learn a little bit more about that 28 years, but then also, what did what happened? Like, and how do we bounce forward from it?
Yeah, yeah, but and it's better for me. I guess it's more therapeutic for me to talk about it. So later, I don't mind talking about what happened because maybe it can help some people because everyone tends to think that everything just happens to them. So maybe hearing my story will give some insight to how someone else can navigate outside of their story. So, but for me, initially, I've always, like I said, from fourth grade and before that and after. I've always been kind of like the life of the party, someone who brings a different energy to the room. I had some junior high school teachers who I'm very close to this day. Just think about teaching in the inner city and, one gentleman, he's Jewish. The other woman, she's Catholic. But you have two people who are white in the inner city of Harlem, New York, Spanish Harlem to be exact. And they're teaching these kids from all these different backgrounds, from abusive parents to drug addicts. And we all had a diverse class of different status. Some people had working parents, some people had parents who didn't work. But to have all these kids on one accord, and they credited me for that situation. They said I gave them the best 3 years of teaching that they've ever had because my thing was we never left anybody behind. If there was people who were poor and didn't have the clothing or someone who was socially awkward, I would always make a point that my cool friends, if you want to be friends with me, you gotta be friends with him and with her. And that really it led to no major conflict in those 3 years that I was in the school and those teachers. So that was the beginning. Then later on in life, I went to high school. Some things happened in my life where I had to go to South Carolina, to Charleston to be exact, to live with my aunt for 3 years. And I went to school, graduated, played high school basketball, which was great. It was an awesome experience for me. Then I came back to New York City, worked at a law firm for maybe less than a year and a half before being discovered by a woman named Diane Leesey, who's, God rest her, she's no longer with us, but she was a huge entertainment fan. And she was into Stanley Tucci, when his career first started. She's like, he's going to be a big star. And I know you're going to be a big star. So she made me go on an audition for In Living Color and actually got about four callbacks, and they decided not to continue with the show. But, I felt that I was talented. And one guy from my job, Reggie Simmons, he signed me up for an amateur night in New York at the New York Comedy Club. And from that moment, you had to bring three paying customers in order to get on stage. So many people from my job and my family thought I was funny. To this day, if they still keep the record, 90 something people came to see me my first night. And so that started my career, and I was just off to the races from there, Todd.
How fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it makes me curious. I wonder what people get wrong. Like, what's the most common misconception about being the funny one?
Yeah. I think being an entertainer, when people, because I had the same misconceptions too, so I'm able to like take it with a grain of salt. I don't get offended. I don't feel like, somebody's making a wrong assumption. I'll tell you this time, when I used to watch something as simple as Def Comedy Jam, before I even started doing comedy, it was such a huge phenomenon. And then finally get a chance to meet the men and women who actually, you know, formed on that show. I thought that they were filthy rich, eating grapes every day and not doing their own laundry, like it was a shock to find out that, like they work just like you and I. Everything is a job. Your favorite actor, actress, even there's exceptions to every rule. There's DiCaprio's and there's Denzel Washington's and there's the Meryl Streep. They make lots of money, but they have issues too. They have family problems or whatever. But I'm just talking as you peel the layers back and you go a little further down the totem pole. We're all pretty much the same. I had to learn that lesson quickly. When I did Def Comedy Jam just at the age of 21, which is very, very rare for a comedian in the first year and a half of their existence to be on a super prime show like that. That check was $800 and they took almost half of it. And then it wasn't a, you know, group of attorneys and agents knocking at my door. So I had to work even harder after I did my television spot. So yeah, basically.
Well, that's interesting that you would think that, that was the big break, and then it wasn't in the way that you thought it was. But I'm wondering how it did serve you? Like, how did it make you better to have that big, huge opportunity so quickly?
Well, it let me know that I belonged early. I didn't have to, like some of my contemporaries or some of my peers are having some great success right now. This is a very good time for a lot of people who, didn't quite have the blessings that I had early on, that they're living a fantastic, they stayed the course and they've been benefiting from being in the business so long. Well, I had the benefit of being like, almost what you would call a phenom, straight out of high school and into the pros type of situation. And so, yeah, it let me know that I belonged. I kept my job for at least another year and a half before I ventured off and did comedy full time. So just imagine being from the mailroom, and now everybody sees you on HBO and you're coming into their office and the partners in the firm and everybody's like, "Oh, we watched you last night." So like I was almost like a celebrity within my own building in Midtown Manhattan. So free lunch, you know, the ladies were kind of like, "Oh, you look a little more handsome." I'm like, "I'm 21."
So to the extent that you're comfortable, we did you did say a couple times now about like the hard stuff that happened all at once that might be relatable for people. What can you tell us about that? Like I say, like what to the level that you're comfortable talking about it. I do
Yeah,
think people
yeah.
learn from each other's hard things. So can you walk us through that?
So there's a piece of comfort that comes along with just life in general. Like so, like I said, 28 years from the time I started doing comedy, I was very blessed. You can imagine being 21, 22 years old, making a six-figure salary at a time where a six-figure salary is much different than today. Like, you know what I mean? Like uh so I felt like not like a millionaire, but I was able to like, take care of my family, take care of bills and stuff. So I got into national radio and it seemed like a lot of great things were happening. And then COVID came. And then with COVID came a great deal of trial and tribulation. Like my father passed right before COVID in November of 2019. So that was the beginning. And taking care of him for about 4.5 years, he had Alzheimer's dementia. And so it was foregone. We knew that there would be a point where he would probably not be with us, but that's where that started. Then of course COVID hit and the isolation of being in the pandemic and having to, stay at home and things of that nature. Then I lost my radio contract. After years of doing radio at the number one spot on any show that I was on, it seemed like my trajectory was going out of the roof. They were taking off shows like Steve Harvey to replace them with mine. That's the level I was on prior to that. And so it was some issues at work because there was a situation with a new cast member that didn't work out really well. So I was moved to another show. And then once my contract was up, they were paying a lot of money and they were like, "Hey, we're bleeding because of, COVID." So I lost my contract. And that began the spiral of, wow, the world is still closed. I can't just be the comedian and jump out and get on a tour, go do some dates or create anything. Everything is still closed. Where am I going to find money? Then that spiraled into my oldest daughter, who was at 14 at the time. Her mother passed away in June of 2021, which began a different responsibility has always been involved, but now I have to be this custodial, single parent. And that had its challenges as well because she was 14. She didn't want to leave her hometown. She had people pulling her in all these different directions. It was very a tough period. And then, not to mention, I was in a failed relationship prior to that. So it was so loud. Like I said, when you're used to making uh, a very high six figures to making absolutely nothing, I mean, you're living off of, all your money is going to child support for your children, which is fine. But at the same time, like you're just living beneath your your usual way of living. And I never lived high on the hog. I never had like a fancy car. It just I had enough to do things, but I didn't have anything. And when I say anything, like I had to make choices. Like, am I gonna like have a vegan diet? I mean, it was getting serious, you know. And so it was tough, and it helped me understand that, like a lot of people are going through that, but you know, I'm not ashamed to say this. I never felt uncomfortable about, my mortality or whatever until this period. Like I never felt like going off the edge, but I can understand people who have. That for me was a lot. It was an emotional time where for me I had to kind of, you know, think about my children, think about the love for myself, honestly, and be like, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna get through this. I don't think you can just crumble because things are not working out in your favor. Just barely making a red tide, just barely like, like now I'm looking at the back of the tag on the groceries. I'm counting them on mine. Like, okay, I got this and I got 30 something dollars and I can get bread and I can get this and I can make it. I never had that in my adult life until I'm 48 years old. It's crazy. And so, yeah, so it was a rough time and, we're still coming through it, but we're doing some great things now. So that's the blessing. Sticking with it.
Sticking with it. And you kind of you scratched the surface, I think, of the question that was coming into my head while you were sharing that. And thank you for sharing because I think that there's a lot of people that have had a lot of combinations of things happen. You know, they say bad things happen in threes. Well, it's been like 13s lately for most people, right? So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
the details. But also I feel like there's something there when you started to talk about your kids and like the reasons that you kept going. What kept you going when things felt so dark?
Well, it kept me, like my desire to be a good father. And, the saddest part about it, and I don't want to place any blame, people get emotional and you say things, you feel a certain way. And when you're a parent, as you know, it's like, even when you're married for 20 years, there's a small competition. And and in that competition, you want to be your child's favorite, especially when they're little babies. You say mommy first and daddy first, but if there's a split, sometimes it can get a little ugly. And sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's loud. Some things have been done, but I can tell you from my perspective, my father wasn't spoken highly of. And my sister and I had to come to the realization that we have two different opinions of who our father is. And my time with my dad allowed me to see him from a different perspective, what helped me allowed me to be more understanding of how difficult it is being a parent, let alone a man. So, and then everything that he's done, I did the opposite time, and I'm in the same place. I'm being, considered this and considered that. Lies are being told, things are being spread about, so that was the toughest thing. As a father, I really and I still going through some issues with, the oldest, when they're teenagers, they go through this period. But now I have a teenager who has lost a parent and they have all these other entities and thoughts in their mind of how they want their life to be. But I have to be the dad. I have to be the structure. I have to be the one that says no. And that's not very well received. So we're going through that period and I have a young one who's turning 10 and, the relationship over there has not been the best, which sometimes you can shake your head and say you don't know why. But at the same time, like I said, for my children, I've always felt like I was going to be like this great dad. I feel like I am, and I have to stick to that. And that's something I have to tell myself because it gets hard sometimes. Like, man, did you mess up? Where did you mess up? Like, that, some things it feels like nobody wants to talk to you or nobody wants to, be like, hey, dad, and you see people on TV or you see people in your neighborhood or maybe women who just feel that their father is the greatest thing in the world. You know, I want that. And for some reason, I felt like I did everything to get that, but you get nowhere. So yeah, it's tough, but I'm here for it. I'm built for it.
Well, what has being a parent taught you about yourself?
You know, even it's, the funny thing, and I don't want to be a comedian when I say this, but like the funniest thing I learned is actually like, I used to tell this joke about my father not being around, which he was. And so, but it's a joke in the sense where, he could have been around a lot more, but let's just say he wasn't. And I would tell this joke like, man, he had it right, man. Stay away from them kids until they get older. They can understand life themselves. But no, it's really difficult, but it's a part of the process. Sometimes the harder times come out, and then I see people who there's a gentleman, I won't say his name, but he had a situation where he and his wife divorced, and he was kept away from his children until each one turned 18, and they all wound up coming and living with him at some point and having a relationship. It's a shame that you have to wait that long because it's not promised. Something can, but everything in life happens for a reason, time. And for me, that's what I hold on to. I hold on to the fact that I don't lose faith. I don't lose the love for my children, and I don't lose the respect for myself. I know I'm a good dad. I know I'm a great dad. And there's a million kids that would love to have a father like me. I tell my kids that all the time. But but yeah, it's okay. We gonna be fine.
What did you have to let go of to become who you are today?
Yeah, I had to let go of the fear. I had this fear that was with me this whole time. If I could tell you that, I'm sure you can understand when I say this and everybody listening. Everything that I experienced, all my wins, all of the great moments on television, being the youngest host on Showtime, I did Power, being on national radio, all of it was done, all of it on a scale of 1 to 10, it was done on a level 2 confidence.
Yeah.
Like my confidence was at a 2. I was just so talented that I can just kinda make up for all of the lack of confidence that I've had. So, a lot of my friends like Kevin Hart or, Bill Burr or, I could name a million guys, Joe Coy, the element that they have that no one really sees because it's something that's in you is the confidence that these guys have had. And I saw it in all of them, and I never had it. And some of it comes different ways. It's not being raised a certain way, but there's certain things that happen, like I said, in my childhood that just kept me feeling like the trap door was open. Just do enough to stay safe, do enough to stay inside the circle. That way you can make a living. You don't have to be rich. That's why when I'm not into radio. It was a decision because nobody can really see me at the time. There was no social media. So you would have to really dig and go online and maybe see what Rudy Rush looked like. And when social came out, then, now everybody has every voice and everything like that. So yeah, that was one of the things that I had to deal with is fear. And now I don't have and now it's a different ballgame for me. I'm still not at a 10, but I'm past 7. So I'm at that 8 and 9 is true.
Rudy, that is impressive growth from a 2 to a 7. How
Oh,
did you
yeah.
get there? Like, how help us hack that fear? Because fear is very real for a lot of people, and you and I have talked about it. I believe that fear and excitement are the same chemical in your brain, and you get to decide, but you still feel the fear. It's still part of the process. So how did you work through, and how would you coach people to do that level of growth?
Well, you know, Ty, you hear a lot of stories, and it's funny. You watch the internet, and you see all these memes, and you see all of these little videos about hitting rock bottom. And, even there was a time when I would think about people would come to school, for career day and say, anything you want to be, you can put your mind to it and blah, blah, blah. And I used to think it was a lot of mumbo jumbo because I wanted to change. All those years that I was living in fear, wanted to change it, but this kept happening for me. And so it allowed me to live in my fear, and it allowed me to be safe within the fear. Like, hey, as long as I stay afraid, these things won't change. I won't leave the iron on stage. That proverbial thought process. Like I won't leave anything. So every time I would go on stage top, I was like totally like I wasn't going through like a fit, but I would have this fear like, cannot, I should fail. Don't fail. Don't fail. And now I don't feel it because of what I went through. And what I went through, what I'll tell people is sometimes hitting that rock bottom, which I hit, made me have to be hungry again, had to make me start from the beginning again, even though I have all these great jokes and I have all the technique and I have the cachet and I have the capability of people putting me on shows. I don't have to start from the bottom in that respect, but I have to start from a place where to become a new Rudy. I don't have to walk in with my shoulders broad or whatever, but I do have to hold my head up and know that after 30 years, I'm one of the best doing it. And if you go out there and you execute properly, then you're going to have a great show. You don't have to be afraid to make sure you hit every punchline. You are the punchline. You are the guy. And so, like, that's what kind of helped me. So if you're in a place where you're at bottom and you can't seem to get any movement, you have to remove the fear, and that was my biggest issue. And so that was definitely, yeah.
Well, you've alluded to some pretty cool rooms and some pretty interesting people that you've gotten the opportunity to work with and collaborate with. And it makes me curious and wondering what your lessons are. Like, what have you garnered from those rooms that has taught you or helped you develop into who you are today?
Really, one room that I was in that really set the tone for me, and I didn't realize it at the time. I was still living in that fear. But something told me I was going to Los Angeles. I was invited to be a part of Netflix 25 for Def Jam, Def Comedy Jam on Netflix, 25 years. And they sent me the information to fly out, stay in Beverly Hilton, all this other stuff. And, that part of me thought I didn't belong there. I really wasn't gonna go. I was like, "Nah, I don't go, you don't even have a shirt, like, coming up with little things in my mind to kind of keep me from going. And something just kicked me in the bottom and was like, Rudy, go, just go so you can see people. Just go so you can, maybe have an opportunity. They're paying for it. It's a free trip. You just started this radio gig in Houston. Like, just go. Things will be good if you go. And honestly, that was the beginning of understanding where I stood amongst my peers, where I sat, who I was sitting next to, and then to see where everyone else was sitting. And the way they placed me, uh, it was, in my opinion, it was unreal. Like I felt like, man, they think this highly of me that they put me in the circle that was closer to the stage where Dave Chappelle could be on stage and they start giving shout outs and he acknowledges me to the point where people call me or the delivery guy who's from Africa, like, I told my friends I think you your phone. And I'm like that. So it just made me feel not only accepted by my peers, but it let me know like all the things that I've done, like I was doing the right thing. So it took away some of that fear. And so, yeah, being in that room, but it also put me in rooms moving forward that, made people feel uncomfortable. And you got to be prepared for that. You got to know how to accept that. You can't take it personally. Sometimes it's people dealing with their own demons. So, June will be 2 years since I stopped drinking. So people who I drank with before, they look at it as, oh, he stopped drinking. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, I just want to live a little longer or be less foggy and blah, 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 lose some weight. Whatever the case may be has nothing to do with what you're doing with your life, but you feel like this is a mirror that's showing you the negative side of you. So, anything you have, if it's charm, if it's talent, you have to understand you're gonna make somebody feel uncomfortable, even if they're a nice person. Normally, it may turn them against you. That's what they now learn. So, I live with that and I stay confident and I don't worry about who likes me and who doesn't. That used to be a big thing for me. Now I don't necessarily care. If you don't like me, you don't like me. But then you gotta stay on that side of the street. I don't allow people to be rude.
Well, congrats on 2 years sober, almost. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm a sober sister myself, so I have mad
Mhm.
respect for that. And I was listening to that story, and what was really interesting was the reason you just went anyway. You said just go, like you just so you followed your gut, which is really important for people because I think a lot of us hear that or feel that little pull, and
Mhm.
they choose to stay comfortable instead. Like you made yourself uncomfortable because you just went and you followed your gut, and the way that you made that happen, though, was you didn't just go. You coached yourself through some good things that were helping you just make the decision. So like you took like the baby steps to get to the decision to follow your gut, which I think there's a huge and a super important lesson there for people because movement, I talk about music, mindset, and movement being the tools that have essentially helped me build what I think is a pretty unreal life. And movement can be physical activity, but it can also just be your movement in your life, and you took the first step without really knowing the whole path. And there's value there. And I'm wondering when else that has paid off for you. Like what other situations have you just gone that ended up, launching you into something you weren't expecting?
Oh man, so it's just opening yourself to having dialogue with people that, I meet people all the time and it's just normal conversation. It's always good conversation, clean, fun, and this and but I'm meeting more people and getting to know more about them and letting them know a little bit more about me. And now it's turning into a situation where, like, honestly, Ty, and you'll realize this at some point, which I feel like you already may have, it's like you have to realize what you're worth. Like, if you invest or you get involved with Rudy Rush, and look at that comes along with it. It's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of, things that you can get from dealing with me. There's a lot of access. There's all these things that I've acquired over my 30 plus years in entertainment that I can apply, even with podcasts, doing podcasts or doing hosting a huge show where let's just say like I posted for the NPR's Moth Tour. The Moth is a storytelling group out of New York and it's a literary event. And not to say that this Def Jam Showtime at the Apollo Comedian couldn't do it, but I don't think there's anyone else who could have done it better than I did. And sometimes I was the only black guy in the room. And I got a letter once to let me know how well or how much I impacted that tour. It was a young lady on the tour. These are storytellers, Todd. And this woman was afraid that whole weekend that, because she was, of the community, the LGBT community, she thought she would be looked at a certain way. She was part of the feminist movement in New York. So she was older. She felt uncomfortable about being in it. We would sell out these different theaters, whether it's Portland in Nantucket, all over the place. We were in Chicago, Minneapolis. But she wrote me a long letter about how she was uncomfortable and she felt a little ashamed to notice that, she can hide her sexuality. She can hide behind that until, of course, she tells the story. But to see me, an African American male, and as young as I was, and then to see me not have any fear, because sometimes I'll be in a moment as scared as I am, people don't know, you know what I mean? And fighters will tell you that too. Prize fighters will tell you they're scared when they go on the ring, and that sometimes helps. 'Cause so it helped me for all of these years. It kept me safe. But she just commended the fact that, I just fit in. I didn't look like I was afraid or I was, it just made her feel like, oh, I can let my guard down if Rudy can do this. So those are the things I learned. And that's how I carry myself.
Well, what I love about that, Rudy, is it's contagious. Like
Yes,
you are contagious in a good way. Like that's honestly like goals for me, right? Like I talk about trying to be the light that I want to see in the world a lot. And Matthew 5:16, it's really cool when you see it in real time unfold like that because you choosing to move through the fear and kind of like essentially have it be part of you, but like not a part that's going to slow you down, a part that's going to fuel you instead has, the ability to empower others to see that that's possible and then to do it in their own life, which is really powerful. So, thank you for being that energy force in the world because we need we need more of us.
No,
We
we
do.
don't. And thank you for thinking that highly of me, Ty. Like, and like we all get up in the morning and hopefully brush our teeth and put our hands on one leg at a time. We're all very similar in a lot of ways, but then there's something deep inside of you that you really need to tap into. And you know, the older you get, you may have little glimpses of it, and you can tap into it, but the sooner you can get into it, if I can speak to my younger self and tell my younger self something like that, I would definitely be like, yo, man, you know, really enjoy yourself. Really, really understand how great you are. And, I know and even as I'm saying it right now, I feel uncomfortable saying that I'm great, but I am great. Met some great people. I've done some great things, and that everything that I've done, even helped people make themselves superstars. There's some people who I've helped their careers, or there's some people who I've helped across the street. It's greatness, and everybody's not built like that. So, accept the good about yourself. Really dig into how great you are and live in that.
Well, you answered my "What would you tell your 22-year-old self?" question without
No,
even
no, no, no.
even
Let me
asking.
tell you.
Oh,
No, listen,
you got a different answer for that?
I
You got
got it great. Yeah, that
Oh,
22.
I'm ready. I'm ready, Rudy. You go. You tell me, what would you tell your 20, because I love that answer of what you tell your younger self, but I'm the specific 22 thing, I wanna hear it.
Now, I would tell my 22-year-olds, don't hold back. Go have a family. Go do like, my kids, because I didn't have my first child until I was 33. So at 22, my kids would now be 30 and 20, and we would all be chilling on vacation, and I would just be like, "Hey, I'll be right back." You know what I mean? Now it's just like all of these things. We would handle the pandemic a different way and all this other stuff. But no, I would tell my younger self at 22, be more mindful who you allow in your circle, who you let be, who you trust to take care of your career. Unfortunately, and that's another thing that helped me because millions, and I'm not being funny. Um, a lot of money was taken from me because of my, I don't know, I like to use the word ignorance. When you are coming from a disenfranchised background like myself, I don't, this is no disrespect to my mom, but I don't think she's ever had $1,000 at one time. It always went to bills, food for us or whatever. So there was never kind of like, oh, take this $200 and go do it. That was never that. So now you're giving me $100,000. Like, please give me a break. You know what I mean? So when someone's giving you that, you feel like you can trust them. But in the background, there's millions of dollars being made from your likeness, from your abilities and stuff like that. That's tough because, when you get older and things start to show themselves and you're like, man, I could have had this whole, you know, could have been the foundation for my financial and my family's financial goals and needs and stuff like that. And it was taken advantage. I'll give you one quick story. I was on the McDonald's tour. McDonald's had a tour with the Apollo Kids. It was Showtime, McDonald's Apollo Kids tour. And we would find the different kids to put on the show. Huh. I'm 21, 22 years old, maybe 23 years old. And you have to understand, they were paying me over 15, like it was in the summertime. I was getting $1,500 a show. It was great money. One show paid my rent. you know? Over a 2-month period, 15 dates, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So I so I sat down. It was year 5. It was the last year of the tour. It was right before the last year of the tour. And one of the representatives from McDonald's who I became good friends with, they asked me, they was like, hey, what's going on? Are they taking care of you over there over at the Apollo? How much are they paying you? And I told them with pride, I was like, "Oh, I get 1,500. I was staying at the Holiday Inn for free, you know, flying first class on American." So all of these things that I've never experienced before, I'm experiencing. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to tell anyone else, it's hard when they say, know your worth because, that's a huge gray area. Even when you feel like you really don't know how much you're worth. But I'll say this, if this helps anybody, if it helps you, Tyler, when you negotiate those big deals you got coming up. It's like having someone in your corner to represent you that knows what they're doing and not taking advantage. I went from $1,500 a show to $15,000 a show.
Wow.
How do you do that? Now, the thing that saves me, I see these TV shows, I see these stories where music artists and other people get taken advantage of. So puts me in that place where two places. One, you're not the only one who's been taken advantage of. Number two, people ain't gonna care because they're gonna say, look at them. They went through it too. And had, so no one really cares. So if I go on top of the mountain and scream, no, 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 there's no GoFundMe that's gonna replenish what I lost. I just have to have luckily I have the fortitude, I still have the youth, and I still have the vitality to go back on stage and do these things and make another run at being great. So that's it.
Wow. I
So
mean,
no, and then to make matters worse, if you think about that, if they were doing that with
yeah,
money they were getting when they done, think of how much they were paying Steve Harvey and then paying me. I thought it was a lot of money, but it was probably millions they were paying him. They were paying me like hundreds of thousands of dollars, which, like I said again, a young kid from Harlem, I'm 26, the youngest host that the show's history. I feel like I'm a millionaire.
yeah.
And in all actuality, they were, living up, where the money was going for them. But it was a huge conflict of interest. And I learned that lesson. At least I thought you still have to go through life. You hit some bumps and bruises along the way. You just gotta just stay focused. Your time will come.
So let's be super practical then, because I hear you saying we need to know what you're worth, and I appreciate your energy around it. And I think that's really hard. Like, I think that's super hard for people to say, "Well, I am worth X dollars for X amount of time." Like, so how like because I know that a lot of my listeners and viewers are entrepreneurs and people that are pushing for more and working on dreams that others might think seem unreal. So knowing that, like how do you figure that out? You said you had some amount of help from like a mentor types or people in your corner. Can you walk me through what that looks like and how people can like what we can learn from what
Mm.
you experience with all that?
Yeah, you learn different techniques. One of the things I learned, um, like I said, trusting someone, especially if you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you're the person, the man or the woman out front, and you're making the deals. In that case, if you know what type of product you have, you know the belief you have in it. You don't want to undercut yourself if it's a contract or a different thing you're looking to get involved with. Always ask, the person who's the buying what they're willing to spend. That way you can start there because sometimes you can jam yourself up that way too. You'll say, "Oh, but they always ask you, how much you want to do?" And you'll say, "Oh, $1,000." And you think you're saying 1,000 because you don't want to say five because you feel like you're gonna run them off. Well, sometimes you got to just stand your ground, like, yeah, give me an offer, we could work from there. And then you'll be surprised. They'll start off, "Oh, but you can send 1,000. Is that cool?" And then you'd be like, "Oh, wait. I'm about to do it for one. You saying seven, five is my number." And then if you like the person, if you like the company, if you could see more coming out of that situation, then you do them something like, "Hey, let's do six. And if this works for us, we'll bring it up to 12." Like there's different ways to negotiate. For me, I feel like I need a person who can talk, be my middle person, because as an artist, when you say no, it's you saying no. When your agent or your lawyer or your manager says no, it's like, "Oh man, I really wanted you to wear the chicken suit, but Howard wouldn't let you wear it." I'm like, "Yeah, Todd's crazy like that." But she said, "I'm good for it," and now it's on you. And they still see me as the good guy. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll talk to her, see if I can still wear it." But man, she's stuck on me not wearing that chicken suit,
No.
and it helps because when I say no, they like, "Oh, Rudy's not a team player." So all the doors close and all these things happen. And and when you're a nice person, and I say that too, being a nice person is not the best thing to be. Be fair. Don't be nice. Be fair. Fair allows you to be nice.
Yeah.
Fear allows you to have boundaries because the minute that one thing happens and everybody starts coming on, "Oh, I knew she wasn't nice. I knew he wasn't nice." And now you become the bad guy overnight to everybody. The sweetheart becomes the villain. And it's not a good feeling all the time, but it's one you got to deal with because you got to live and learn like I did.
You have given us a lot of solid advice, which I'm super grateful for. In
Mhm.
addition to that, one of the things that I have gotten in the habit of asking my guests is if you had a megaphone to share a message with the world right now and everybody had to listen, what would you say?
And you know what? I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I'm like, that's a really good question. So basically what I would say is like we only have this one life and to be hateful and to be, manipulative and things like that, this is a part of life. But yeah, cut the BS out. Like if you on some BS, you gotta change you know, before it changes you. I've seen some things happen to some people who I thought were on the right track, and things happen, and then you look back and see how they were living, and you be like, yeah, that's probably maybe something that attributed to it. But my whole thing is like live life fair. That's it. Live life fair.
Picture your 80th birthday, Rudy.
Yeah.
I know. Don't do the math. But picture the 80th birthday. And I want to know not just who's there, because obviously we know that not everybody we want to be there will be there, but also, what do you want people to be saying about who Rudy was?
You know, I think people are saying it already, which I'm real grateful for. Like people who really know me. Even people who have had issues with me, like I'm a man who's apologized. I know when it's, like I've got into arguments with guys who I had to come back and be like, hey, I don't think I said it the right way or I could have said it differently. But honestly, at 80, I would just love to have my two children there. And if they have any children of their own, which would be my grandbabies, I want my daughters to just maybe us have a moment of, hey, dad, I know this was tough and I know I was difficult or I know this was hard for you or whatever. Like, just to know, like, I did a good job because I got to speak to my father 15 minutes before he passed. And, I still credit the hospice nurse for him calling me like at the right time saying that, hey, your dad is going through at last. And he couldn't even talk because of the dementia. He hadn't spoken in about 2 or 3 months and he tried to mumble. I just told him he did a great job. Something along those lines. I wouldn't mind that being the situation when I'm eight.
Yeah. We haven't talked much about music at all. And music is one of the tools in my tool belt to rebuild my life. So I'm curious what your song of survival is. Do you have a song that you go to when like you need to keep going and it feels hard and it helps hype you back up or ground you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I have, which is actually I have some songs that I have that I share with my daughters, and we have excellent bond through those songs. One is Layla Hathaway's "You Were Meant for Me," and I like that song for my oldest because she was my only child for 10 years, and it was like Layla Hathaway, her relationship with her dad and him not being here, and just I just felt like her singing the song that he sang. I felt like it would bring my daughter and I closer together in the house. She knows that song. If she hears that anywhere, I don't care if she's upset with me or if she's not speaking to me, she hears that, she feels something. So, and then the younger one, we have this love letter from Casey and JoJo. I like that. But for me personally, I'm a kid from the hip hop era. There's a plethora of songs that I can go to, but X gonna give to you is they playing in what's movie is that? Deadpool, and I love it. It's just an exciting song. The beginning, it's like me telling the world of comedy or the world of entertainment, I am that guy. And the beat and everything, it just gets me in the mood. So if I had a go-to song, that's definitely it. But for the ladies listening, that's totally like, I'm a Marvin Gaye fan and I love Marvin Gaye songs. And I think you can almost pick anything, but You Love to Ball is one of my favorites and what's going on and things like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna give them to you. That's my go-to song.
Thank you for sharing those. What I'm finding to be so exciting about this question is literally everybody lights up when they talk about music. Like it's really cool, and I love music because it makes me feel there's parts of your brain that music reaches and works with that words don't. So like music has healed and music is empowering But the thing I think I like most is that it connects people in the most unique ways. So I'm so grateful for the variety too. You hit us up with some variety. I'm grateful. And it's good. I love it. And I want I mean, I could talk to you for forever, but, I don't know if we keep people's attention that long. So, I want to ask one last thing, and that is what you would add, if anything, what you would wanna share, what you're currently working on that you'd wanna spotlight, anything like that that I didn't ask. Now is your time to shine.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of different things, some comedy shows coming up. I'm actually going to do a couple of tour dates with one of the fresh new faces of comedy. Gentleman, his name is Ali Sadiq. I'm going to go out on tour. He starts his 30 city tour, so I'm going to help out in the first couple of legs. May do more. What else? There's HumorCon. Look out for that. That's bringing comedy basement leadership, and there's a company that has approached me about being a part of that. So that's pretty cool. Also doing some comedy nights in cities near you. That's going to be big. And uh, I hate to say this, but my special, which I shot over a year and a half, November of 2024, we've been in litigation about certain aspects of this and that, but I think we may do a reshoot, which is actually excellent. So I've got a company that wants to fund that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And, there's some possibilities of doing some other things. But right now, that's basically what's going on. And you can follow me at Rudy Rush on Instagram. And that's what's up.
Awesome. Well, Rudy, I am so grateful for you. Thank you for showing up, showing out, and teaching us some really important things about the way that comedy can really impact everything we do if we let it.
Oh, no, absolutely. And real quick, I forgot this part. I
Oh,
got a movie that I just wrote. It's called Karaoke Dog. So please, it's in rewrites right now. So just listen out for that. It's a fantastic, comedy, adventure, action, that kind of deal in New York City. And it's just a fun, movie written by myself. And we are gonna actually have some fun shooting that. So look forward to that too.
man, we buried the lead. We buried the it's fine. I'm hopeful that people see the exciting things that are coming. And I am so grateful. So thank you so much again. And we will see you next time on Quick Before You Forget. Thank you for being here with me today on Quick Before You Forget. Please like, share, and subscribe as that helps the show so much, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on Quick Before You Forget.